good morning, everybody. How
Good.
are you doing?
Good morning, Johnny.
Well,
Doing good.
Danielle just interrupted me as I was in my trip.
My bad.
But so, we are here with Danielle Barber as usual, as their lovely co-host or Vanna White of the show. And we are with Todd with Cat 3. He runs Cat 3 Water Mitigation Company, and we will be discussing several topics today. One, water mitigation, of course. Two, we will dabble into a little bit of plumbing, some electricity, and
The insurance on the mitigation.
side. Yeah, of course. Always the insurance side. That's the only reason why I have Danielle around. That might be the sidekick.
That's comical.
Those guys got to be around. They pay
But I
everybody.
get one out of
That's
2
right.
years. That's okay. But anyway, we'll be back here shortly with the rest of the interview. Thank you. Don't hit the mic.
Oh, I got one.
Well, Todd, so tell us how long you've been in business.
Cat 3 Water Mitigation has been operating since 2019.
2009. What all areas do you service?
DFW, we service as far as Sherman. We've done some work in Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
We've traveled around. So we hadn't really done a lot of storm chasing yet, but we're capable.
Oh, well, that's cool. Because with my industry, as far as a home inspection, we're kind of corralled to Texas. We can go and get licensed in other states, but we actually have to get a license. We can't just cross the border and work. So.
Hey, I'm going to show up here.
I'm not a mule from Mexico.
Different states have different rules and regulations for their mitigation companies.
Is there a licensing for water mitigation?
There's not in the state of Texas.
Okay.
What people do prefer is the IICRC WRT training.
That's a
and
lot
the
of letters.
It is. And I can't always pronounce it right, what it stands for either. Yeah.
I'm gonna hold off on that for a while. That's a totally different show.
Yeah, IICRC. And the TDLR regulates the rules and regulations for the IICRC.
That's good.
So for water mitigation, there's the IICRC classes, the WRT certification, but there's obviously different licensing for mold, for asbestos, for things like that.
Now, for the people listening, and probably more so for me, what do those letters stand for?
We can look them up.
He has only memorized the letters.
I like it. Yeah. I like it.
Absolutely,
No.
absolutely.
If you're in the industry, though, you need to know that the IICRC rules and regulations, they have books and guidelines that you go by, and those are really important for insurance billing. You have to be able to follow them because it's what they do and don't recommend is pretty much what the insurance will and won't pay for.
Okay.
And I know, like with that certification, it also requires a little bit of infrared technology. As far as being able to go in, and we use this in a home inspection as far as being able to kind of get almost a second opinion based on what we visually see with our own eyes. If we see, a water stain or something that looks like it's wet, we will use a infrared camera. Oops, that probably was loud.
Mm-hmm.
My bad. We will use an infrared camera to identify different colors, different patterns in a particular area. That helps us to determine if there is water coming from a particular source, whether it be from a roof, plumbing, any sort of within an attic or a crawl space, bathroom, so on and so forth.
What got you into this industry? What made you go, I want to do water mitigation?
Well, water mitigation. First, the infrared technology, I think, is wonderful since they came out with it. Real quick, I want to touch on moisture metering.
We use that as well.
Right. So the typical original moisture meter looks like a thermometer with a little gauge on the top, and you just, almost like a turkey thermometer. You stuck in the walls, and it made a little bit bigger hole. Then they progressed, and they have these tiny little needle-like pins you could poke into them. Still leaves a tiny little hole, but a whole lot less noticeable. And then they came out with the pinless. The pinless, which aren't as accurate.
Yeah.
They're going to basically give you a external moisture reading and say that it reads internally. I haven't found them to be the most accurate.
Yeah, they're usually, from my experience, they're usually off by about 5 to 10%.
They can be.
And then, they can kind of throw you off a little bit. Now, as far as your job goes, I mean, in the mitigation, clients are already aware that they have a water intrusion problem.
Sure.
So they're not going, areas that you use a pin type moisture meter, it's no big deal. But where we go in and do an inspection, we have to use the pinless style because a seller doesn't want us to go poking holes in their walls,
right,
floors, or anything like that.
Even when they're teeny tiny.
Exactly.
No, I get it.
Because they will blame you for whatever happens.
Sure. Well, the thing is if you don't have infrared, when you're going across a home and there's been some kind of moisture breach, you need to find everywhere it's touched. You need to follow the moisture trail, and you're going to take pin readings across that whole house. Early on, what we found is, okay, we measured the area, but then you'd find it all the way across the house. You're like, we're done. Well, let's measure across the house over here. Why is this wet? All the way across the house. Well, it's little mortar grooves in the tile underneath it traveled through, and then it soaked the carpet on the other side of the house. So the infrared gives you an up on that. You don't have to initially poke holes in everything. It shows you everywhere you need to test, and then you can test accurately and poke holes only where you need to, because most of the infrared moisture meters have a pin type that plugs into it. And the cool thing about the moisture meter is it takes pictures of the areas that are lit up blue or red or whatever you're looking at. And then you can take pictures, screenshots of the moisture readings that you take with the pin as well. And then you just transfer it right onto your Xactimate files or whatever it is. And then you can use that also as your moisture mapping of the house, which helps with the insurance companies. They always want to see that. If you don't have those pictures, they're like, well, why did you tear out all the way over here? Why did it test all the way over here at that? I don't know. I don't know why it traveled all the way over there. Maybe the foundation slopes a little bit and it ran downhill, which happens, right? So, but the infrared.
Those are questions
yes,
that somebody's going to ask you.
Absolutely.
You know the answer to.
You may have proof, but then there's the why. And so people want the why, and the infrared shows the pictures, and that technology is great. Now, it's the difference between a $30 pin type meter and the base price of a $600 type meter for the infrared, all the way up to $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000. They get expensive. I mean, if you want the good technology, you got to pay for it in this industry.
Yeah.
Right. Now the other question, how did we get into this?
Yeah.
I lost track of
right.
I was going to say, he's good at circling back.
I had to remember. I really focused on that.
Good job.
So when I started off, I was 18 years old, and I was building seats for GM. And I noticed guys, because we were all union, they were doing all these side jobs. I was working nights, and these guys were making twice as much during the day doing things. And I'm like, well, I want to do that. So I learned to lay tile. And then I got into bathrooms, and then I got into kitchens. And lo and behold, a lot of water damage. And so I was operating back in the black mold scare. I think it was like around 2002. The big farmers, where farmers almost crashed, State Farm. Every bit of mold was $100,000 mitigation
That's
job.
why there's
back
mold
then.
exclusions.
Right,
now.
exactly why. And so they couldn't differentiate back then. They didn't do all the testing, and they didn't differentiate between black mold, which is Stachybotrys, and just normal mold, which is just most of the time it's black. I mean, it just is.
It's just
And
the
so
color, not the actual.
right, it's the color.
Yeah.
And so customers now are like, that mold, it's black mold. It's like, let's do some testing. Let's find a consultant.
And a lot of times when
right?
you see something like that, it's not necessarily mold in the first place. And not to cut you off, but in my industry, we can't even say the word mold unless we have a mold license.
Sure.
Even if you have a mold license, you still can't say it's mold until after a sample is collected,
Sure.
sent to a lab, and tested. Because it could be just something as simple as mildew, which is a lot easier to mitigate than mold.
Sure.
Because it just takes nothing but rubber gloves, a sponge, and some bleach, and you're done.
Well, it depends on who you're asking. If you're asking the IICRC, they still want containment, decontainment, negative air pressure of 0.2 CFM for all of it. If anything tests, yeah, because mold is the beginning of of spore growth. And so if you run a sample, still it will still test out, and they'll want you to mitigate following the IICRC S500 guidelines, and you have to follow all that. So
I didn't think they were that stringent.
they're pretty stringent.
Mildew. I knew mold they were, but I didn't know.
Well, they're classifying it in the same category
Makes sense.
because it's growth.
Yeah.
And when you mitigate, the particulates can go into the air, they can hit the air system, and they can affect your customer. There's still no
Especially if they're
right.
inside
if there's
There's a lot of
Yeah.
sciencey words.
and if
going
they're
on here.
susceptible, if they're in the more susceptible categories, under 6 or over 60 underlying health conditions, I tell customers it's a lot like what they say about COVID. You could have underlying health conditions. The other thing is they don't have any definitive proof. They're still working on it, on exactly how mold affects your health. They have proven that long term, they know it can cause brain damage, long term exposure. Allergies, yes, you can develop allergies, and even after it's eradicated, still have allergies the rest of your life. You can develop asthma and have it forever, just from prolonged exposure, which is why during the mitigation process, it is imperative that you make sure your employees follow the proper guidelines, wear the proper PPE, wear the proper respirators, particulate respirators, because I tell my guys, I'm like, hey, if you keep getting exposed, you could develop allergies and you could not be allowed to be around this anymore because you can have reactions from the smallest little thing. You can become susceptible. That's how that goes. So anyway, I went through that process back then, and I saw the potential.
He's so good at this.
he didn't lose a beat.
Yeah. So I saw the potential.
I was lost when he started.
I know. I saw the potential in this industry, but then insurance started excluding. So what is there left? There's water mitigation. And I became a pretty much a bigger contractor. I was over the 100 block of the West Exchange for Billy Bob. I led a group of carpenters there. And then we would travel around. We did work, like I said, in Arkansas. And some years back, we were doing some work in Arkansas for a friend that we were building an Airbnb in Austin for. And we were traveling back and forth. And they wanted a pantry put in their home, an old 50s farm style house. So we tore out this old pantry, and one of my guys fell through the floor.
Okay.
And then there was this big splash, and I'm like, splash, pier and beam home, right? Concrete piers around the outside. And I'm like, why is there a splash? And this huge mosquito swarm came out and filled the house. And then I stuck my head under there and saw all this water floating, septic-y water and maggots and all this stuff. And these people had only lived in this home for 2 years. And this will hit the inspection side. And I started looking back, and we did some research, and we looked at their home inspection in this little town of Arkadelphia, Arkansas. And it's a good old boys, coalition, 2 inspectors in the whole town. I think it was Texas Farm Bureau that insured it. And it said, and we called this guy lovingly Josh the plumber, signed off on this, that the plumbing was all okay. We got under there. There were 3 drain breaks that had been leaking the whole time they had lived there for the whole 2 years. Had to be. And half the drains didn't have glue on them. So anytime they used any bathroom in their house, it was just flushing under the house. And it was holding like a holding tank, just like a big septic tank, because there's nowhere for it to leave. And so it would just stay there every time. And this was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a kitchen. And so it held everything that flushed out of the toilet line, that flushed out of the kitchen line, flushed out of the shower, the dishwasher, the washing machine, just flowed under there. And it just got trapped, and it would just kind of like be a nasty septic-y steam hitting the foundation, all the wood, all the joists,
wafting through
and
the
it
house.
rotted it from right, and it rotted it from underneath. And we maxed out the insurance and had to rebuild this house while the people were in it. And we learned about the ins and outs because we had to take classes, and we took classes. And we bought some equipment, and we, tried to follow the S500 guidelines, which were a little different in Arkansas at the time than they are here in Texas. But that's where we really started learning. And I was like everybody in 2008 when the crash hit and my business got hit, and I left for the oil field up north in North Dakota. Well, somebody dropped a pipe on me, and I've had all these neck injuries. My shoulder's been repaired 6 times. I have no labrum left. My bicep got ripped off. So I had all this constant pain.
We're twinning.
Yeah. And so it was really bad. And so going back to work in this industry has been very painful as a contractor, being able to get out and do the work. And I needed to find an avenue of work where I could do more supervising and take care of my body better. Right. But at the same time,
I just don't want to do this.
well, no, and I get it.
That's the reason why I have Chris.
Oh, I
You could've
don't
stopped
like
at
to.
work.
Yeah, I don't like doing the physical work, but I still get in there because part of me wants to get out and move and do. And yeah, and I and I pay for it when I do it. But so that's really what got me into it. Building the water mitigation industry. It was kind of like the company was my end game,
Okay.
and I wanted to be able to. I love creating jobs. I enjoy creating a good work environment for my employees, a job they enjoy coming to, and it's a family-owned business. We're not a franchise. Our dollars stay local. Like I said, my sister-in-law is the office manager, and the guys are friends. We all have great working relationships, and I wanted to provide a company where people can move up and they can become supervisors and they can grow as per, which end we open. We've been water mitigation. We just opened our fire and smoke. We're going to have a new guy that's going to be over that in our odor control. And in a month or two, we're going to open up our total floor care. And then the end game is asbestos, getting into the asbestos with the shower trailers and going more commercially, the commercial side. I have no want, no matter how big it gets, to franchise. I'm not interested in somebody else putting their name on it because I just don't believe it'll have the same quality of customer service. And that's what I like, is sitting with the customer and reassuring them, no matter how devastating it is, that everything's going to be okay.
It is. When I get those calls, they are usually late at night. They're devastated. They're frustrated. They don't know what to do. And they are just, when you hear them call, they're thinking in their mind, this is going to cost me a lot of money. And who is going to clean this up? And how do I clean this up? And I'm glad to hear you say that you go over all those concerns with them, because they literally call me panicking.
Sure.
Like, am I covered for this? And I'm like, okay, first of all, you should be. Let's figure out the source first.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. Those phone calls are usually late at night that I get them.
Well, it's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched, and during this big Texas freeze storm we had, we lost our power. We went and stayed with our in-laws because they still had power. We lost water out there. We're out there dipping out of a hot tub for water, right? And thawing snow on the stove, just like everybody else for drinking water. And we come back home, and it's time to go to work, and we have no water. And my wife and my baby and my son, we have no water. At least we had heat. I had some bottled water I had stored, so we were good there. And she's like, but we have like 13 busted lines in our house. And I'm like, I know, I shut it off and I got to go to work. Well, and we fixed ours 2 weeks later,
Oh, wow.
And that's how that was but seeing what it does, it busted in our rent house. It flooded our travel trailer. It busted our main house. Mm-hmm. So everything was flooded. And thank God we had the equipment and everything, to do that. But watching what people went through, they were literally crying. Yeah. And it's like, man, one lady, I just lost my mom. She died, and she would have helped me through this, and just sat and cried, and we held her hand while she cried several times. It is devastating when it floods and you lose things that you love. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Things that are irreplaceable. Yeah, you can assign a dollar amount to that, but you can't replace them. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I tell the customers. We do a lot of pack-ins and pack-outs, packing up their stuff. And I say, okay, I do not want my crew to touch what I call great Aunt Edna's china. Yeah. Anything that I can't pay to replace or my insurance will not cover, they'll replace it, but
they're not going to pay
it's
the
irreplaceable. Yeah. Your grandfather's heirloom from World War II, we can't go get another one else. So I like y'all to move that, and we'll move everything else. Mm-hmm. Yes. People lost a lot of that stuff during that storm. Yeah. And so it was really devastating for them. And I've had customers that just came back from hotels that the house is flooded in February, and some of them are still in hotels.
Yes, they are.
It still hadn't done because we were not equipped. The United States was not equipped to deal with that kind of devastation. Kind of like the hurricane that just went up. There's not enough mitigation companies in the United States to deal with the devastation from the changing weather patterns that we've been experiencing. There's just not. Yeah. And so now we do our own build back. We have our own in-house build back. So we're able to, like some houses, we complete mitigation and complete move back inside of 30 days, which is what, in my opinion, depending on the amount of devastation, that's really good.
Reasonable.
That's reasonable. but the ones that are sitting 3, 4, and 5 months because there's not enough contractors, not enough painters, there's not enough
Supplies.
Yes, supplies are out.
That was a huge thing.
Yeah.
Was supplies, plumbers, just they had plenty of work to do, no supplies.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, everything was gone. I mean, connectors.
Then you have a price surge because
PVC
demand
pipe.
surge. And,
Oh, yeah.
Exactly, and everything just gets bought up so fast.
Yeah.
And people just can't keep up with the demand.
Yeah, one of my really close friends. He owns a plumbing company. He's a master plumber, the youngest master plumber I've ever met.
Master plumber.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. He's
Pass it on to him.
yes. I'll give him a holler and let him know. He's the youngest master plumber I've ever met. I believe he had his master certification in like 36,
That's great.
and he's 40 now, and he is the most immaculate, OCD plumber I've ever met. I mean, there is no good enough. But this guy's great, and they were traveling.
Some great plumbing jokes. I'll save them for now.
Oh yeah, it'd be great. They were going all the way to Oklahoma to get parts, and then over years and years, I've accumulated all these plumbing parts. And he's like, "I need your parts. I need to go to your shop, and I need all your stuff." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Fine, go find what you can and take them," because there just weren't parts to repair people's homes.
Yeah.
Just fittings, simple
Yeah.
fittings,
Yeah.
and it's wow. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Like this freeze storm do what it did.
I haven't either. And we're anticipated to have another one this year.
Yes, the Farmer's Almanac is predicting
Yeah.
it 3rd or 4th week of January.
Yeah.
And
It's
we're
crazy.
I
preparing.
actually have some ideas that I want to run by you.
Yeah.
later on,
Okay.
whenever you have time. But
Sure.
So we are publishing a blog, Cat 3 is, and I have written up things that customers or homeowners can do to prevent pipe bursts in their home, to prevent mold in their home, to prevent a water mitigation catastrophe.
heat strips, things that you can.
Yes.
We just had those in our water lines running through our attic. We added
A lot
heat
of people
strips.
don't know they have water lines running through their attic because it's cheaper to replumb through your attic than
Yes.
tunnel under the foundation.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, we didn't know." And the
Yeah.
thing is I saw a lot of PEX reroutes through attics that were insulated,
Mhm.
that were heated, still burst.
Ours would have burst had I not gone up there with I had a little space heater that I went up there and I just sat and I waited until it thawed back out. But our hot water line in our whole house froze up.
Oh yeah, well if your water company shuts down and you can't trickle your faucets, you're going to have freeze and you're going to have breaks.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about that.
And ours was PEX. It was wrapped.
Yeah.
Still froze.
Or there was a couple of things. You can vac out your lines. If you can evacuate your lines, there's room for expansion. And then you won't have the pressurized expansion and you won't have the breaks.
Yeah.
I saw a few people that did that, and I saw a few people lucky enough that somehow back pressure sucked the water out of their lines in their home, and they didn't have breaks. But the ones that have water left in their lines, when the water company shut down,
Can you do that on a city line, or can you only do that with if you're on a septic or something?
you can do it on a city line. You can suck down your lines.
I don't want to suck down my lines.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, you can even, if somebody knows what they're doing, you can go to the.
18 and up.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should do like a.
But we might have to move it to 21.
Maybe we should do that on a show one day. Is you come to my house? It's right down the road, and we can teach how people how to suck out their lines.
Yeah, that would be a plumber thing. Yeah.
Fine. We'll call the plumber in.
Yeah, exactly. That's why a master plumber would be awesome to have on the show.
Okay.
Because,
I have had some helpers I actually talked into go down there and with your mouth suck the water out of that line just so I could take a picture of them doing it. Yeah, get that water out of that line, and I'd watch them do it, take a picture, say, "We just posted this," so things like that.
That's
so.
great.
the easiest way to do it is you shut off the valve to the main house, then you just run all your faucets to the water stops.
Or
Oh.
my plumber tells me you can take the meter loose on the homeowner side, and it will drain that way. And then you can open your lines, and you can put even the shop back on it, or you can put an air hose on it and blow it all out. If you can get the water out of your lines, there's nothing there to freeze. Now, it's something that the average person probably wouldn't have the tools and things to do.
And they really shouldn't if they're not,
No.
knowledgeable in that.
You should not touch your water meter if you're not a licensed plumber, really. It's
Correct.
probably you should not do that.
Yes, great disclaimer there.
Yeah.
Well, I can go and I can open the little lid and I can look at it and go, I have
Yes.
no idea what's going
But
on.
don't put a
inside
wrench
here.
on it and start twisting things. You could have a real problem.
You do have the main water shut off
Yeah.
near the home, usually in the flower bed. It's covered with a little green lid.
Ours are blue. In Oak
Whatever
Harbor,
color
they're
you use.
bright blue.
Okay.
Yeah, makes
But
no
yeah,
sense.
Yeah, but glue, you take that off, there's a valve in there, you shut it off, it shuts the water off to your house.
Yeah.
Now, you will still have water from that valve to the street.
Right. But any water you can get out of your line from that point creates space in there for expansion.
Okay.
Right. And that's the problem is when it stops and you run out of expansion room, it just pops.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's PEX, doesn't matter if it's copper. There's probably not much galvanized left out there, but
The insurance is getting a little more sticky about covering galvanized. So
Yeah, galvanized it's still out there. We've inspected some homes here.
it's like the old aluminum wiring. Thank God it's disappearing.
thank you, Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
It's getting so hard to
I
insure.
think I call or text Danielle at least once a month.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what I just found?
Yeah, sparks. The home I'm in has aluminum wiring, and there is ways around it. I had an electrician come in, and he no-locked and pigtailed everything.
Well, here's the thing about pigtailing is now insurance companies are going, nope,
Yeah.
go in, make it right. We don't want to see pigtails. We want it.
Make it right.
Well,
They want it rewired all the way.
I'll tell you what had happened when we first moved in. Most people have a hairdryer plugged in on their counter, or a lot of people do. It was the middle of the night. We had aluminum wiring, and I had a dream, and I smelled smoke. And I woke up, and my room was full of smoke. And it was one of those carpeted bathrooms. And the hairdryer was on at 2 a.m. and burning a hole in the carpet. And it was still shut off. And
but it was getting the circuit through.
There was so much dust. The circuit was going through because those aluminum wires expanding and contracting, and it shorted, and it sent electricity through the hairdryer, and it almost burned our house down in the middle of the night. That's what aluminum wiring will do.
Yeah.
Thank God. And we had at that time, my wife and I had a new baby, and it could have burned our house down with the baby in it and my daughter, and it was like wow. So that's what aluminum wiring and out of date, out of code things can do.
Now we kind of just went way off track.
Yeah.
We got from
Water to electricity. Yeah.
Let me remind everybody, neither one of those things fixes very well. So let's just go ahead and end it on that. And we will be back here shortly with a word from our sponsors. I've always wanted to say that since we started the show, but we don't have any sponsors really.
Yeah. We sponsor ourselves.
Yeah. But if anybody's interested, whatever. All right. Now, thank you for listening. We'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and have some shenanigans with us.
Well, thank you for having us.
Actually, this one was actually more informative than shenanigans.
It was good. You did good.
We got a nice mix.
Thank you.
It was a good job. Good job.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having us out. And
Yeah, of course. And we'll do it again. We kind of just going to cycle through business and local businesses anyway.
Yeah. Everybody needs to know about this kind of stuff. So stop banging the microphone.
well, keep us in mind for your water claims and coming up on fire and smoke damage as well.
Yeah.
Fire and smoke, because I think we did miss talking about that during.
We did. We'll have to bring you back and circle.
So
We'll have to circle back to that
We'll
one.
circle back.
We have
The
a
administration does it all the time.
we have an average response time in this area of 34 minutes to the home, so
That's awesome.
we can be out pretty quick.
Very good. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for coming, and we will see y'all next time. Be sure to like and subscribe to the videos down below. And what else do you got?
Real quick, Halloween is coming up.
Halloween is going up.
Halloween is coming up. We are going to bring you a live special from Oak Harbor in Halloween.
It's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, at least. But yeah, no. So we will be coming with you to you with a Facebook Live episode. Yeah, I'm sorry. Whatever.
Tune in, enjoy.
Yeah.
What's going on in that one?
Who knows?
There's no telling. I mean, it's bad enough what happens during a regular show.
In the
but-
morning.
Yes. I mean, it's. What time is it? Not even 11. But yeah, so this is going to be. We haven't really decided what night yet. That's up to Danielle. I've asked her twice. She still hasn't told me. But we're going to be doing a live show out of Oak Harbor. We're going to be giving more candy to the kids.
What'll be Halloween night?
It'll be okay. I didn't know if it was going to be Saturday or Sunday.
Well, Halloween's on Sunday, right?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll do it that night.
Okay. I didn't know when. I'm not going to get into this right now. This is peace. Later.
Thanks for joining in. See you next time.